You can't enjoy anything anymore.
I didn't want money. I wanted my life back.
I knew that she didn't trust me because I, after all, had been suggested by her insurance company.
Hey, I can't see a lump or a bump or anything that's hanging off you that I can say, oh gee, I see that you're unwell.
There are so many people suffering in silence.
Chronic pain is such a highly stigmatised phenomenon. The experience of chronic pain is not recognised by state or federal government as a condition in its own right. We all know that chronic pain is such a common problem. The Access Economics report of 2007 put the number at $34 billion per year. One in 3 Australians is experiencing chronic pain. Maybe 1 in 6 is disabled by chronic pain.
The whole problem started back in 2003. I played the White Witch in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And at my own suggestion, I found out that she was one of a giant family. And I said, look, I'm a stilt walker from way back. So they said, oh, brilliant, what a great idea. So I actually, when we first started doing Lion, Witch and Wardrobe, I was about 8 foot tall. But when they made me the stilts, I could see right from the start that there was going to be a problem. What they did was to make boots that locked my ankle. They made me boots, which I didn't want. I just wanted them to strap stilts to my feet, but they didn't trust that I'd be able to stand up. Having been a dancer all my life, I have very, very strong legs. So they insisted on putting it in rollerblading boots. So they built the stilts with rollerblading boots, which locked my ankle, which in turn locked my hip flexor, and that in turn went eventually round to my back and gave me the most chronic sciatica and a bulging disc. I think it was called lumbar 5 and SL1. This was the start of an unending relationship with drugs, masseurs, with acupuncture, with someone actually put me into an electronic bath. I was searching for anything that would stop the pain. The pain was excruciating. Hello, Enda. I'm good, my darling. I was still on the road with the show, and it didn't matter how much I screamed and shouted, and I said, it's the stilts, they have been made wrongly. Because my ankle is locked, I can't get any traction with the rest of my legs and my hips. But you're an actor, nobody listens to you. I'm due in at 1:45. Okay, okay, darling. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. I'm feeling just fine. I will call you later just to make sure you're doing okay with everything. I also have your umbrella. Are you waiting for me? I got very depressed because of the pain. I couldn't cough. I couldn't even sit on the loo. It's the most debilitating pain I have ever had. And being on the road, I was going to all different doctors hoping that I would find a cure. We could go for a walk on the balcony. Come on. Did you lock this? I must have locked it. Come on. Someone actually put me on this epilepsy pill to try and get rid of the pain. It didn't work for me because I'm not an epileptic. So I was trying all these things, and I was taking Nurofen like 8 times a day, Panadol, anything I could get my hands on. Plus I was drinking, because one of the few things that really helped was the alcohol. That seemed to relax me, as it does most people. It broke up a relationship with a most wonderful man that I had known since 1998. And it was just, I couldn't do anything. For 18 months, I was depressed, I was in pain, I didn't want to do anything or go anywhere. And I just said to him, look, this is ridiculous, because basically I couldn't even make love. It was so bad. And I said, go, fly, find another woman. And he did. I couldn't have sex with my partner. I couldn't move. So then I put on weight and then I got depressed. I mean, it was such a vicious circle. I think what people don't realize is that when you've got a back problem, you can't do anything. You can't cough. To sneeze hurts. To wee hurts. To do other things hurts. To be in a car and you're going over bumps, and every bump that you go over is excruciating. Your quality of life is gone. You can't enjoy anything anymore. I felt so isolated. I felt very alone. Because you go through a thing of nobody cares, nobody knows what I'm going through, and your friends get sick to death of you saying, I can't, I'm in so much pain, I can't. You know, they can, friends, I mean, really close friends didn't, they were wonderful, but ordinary people that you meet every day, you know, they just don't understand what it is that you're going through. The isolation, you feel such an idiot. And I felt like my life was over. I eventually was told by a very dear friend to contact Chronic Pain Australia, which I did, out of sheer frustration, and I can't tell you, I was just so low. And I got on to Coralie Wales. And she said, please bring every drug that you've taken in the last 6 months or a year, or a list of what you've been taking. So I then started to go through my cupboard, and it filled a bag. She said, show me what you've been taking, and I emptied this bag of all the drugs that all the doctors had given me for pain. And her jaw, to coin a phrase of Shirley Valentine, her jaw dropped into her handbag. She couldn't believe it. And on top of that, I said, I've been having wine and gin and tonic to try and do anything to stop the pain. And she looked at me and she said, it's a miracle that you're still alive. With the food that they told me to eat and the exercise regime, I'm cured.
I'm a lawyer by profession. I worked 16-hour days, weekends, nights. I ended up with just a very simple back injury, what many people have, a prolapse disc. Then did a similar injury to my neck and just continued in this vein until I ended up a great big heap of chronic pain. I didn't seek compensation immediately, I kept working, but when this particular doctor recommended that I take time off work, I had to seek compensation. Then I ended up in this cycle where I eventually was pensioned off from my job before I was 40. That introduced me to a whole new world of medico-legal specialists, which was something I'd never encountered before and was a real shock to my system. I was working in a human rights field of law, so litigation was actually quite foreign to me, even though I was a lawyer. And I have to say, I pity anyone who's not a lawyer who's entering the medico-legal field or the compensation field. My experience is that you walk into any medico-legal consultant's office and their attitude is just say no. I often wonder why doctors become medico-legal consultants. I've sometimes questioned whether these are doctors that have been struck off, because some of them are so bad. Their job is to say no because they're paid by an insurance company and they need to ensure their continued income with that insurance company, and that if they keep letting people through, then they'll find another medico-legal consultant. I have to think, where's the Hippocratic Oath for these doctors? Have they forgotten what their profession is all about? I've actually written letters at times asking, why is this doctor a medico-legal consultant? He's old and crotchety and can he no longer see patients anymore? I've never got any answers to those questions, of course. I've been a bit gung-ho in asking those questions, but they're not the sort of doctors that I would go and see as a patient. I have had 10 years now of seeing medico-legal specialists. I've challenged every single report that's been written about me successfully. I've not had to go to court. I've challenged them administratively. I've not set foot in a court once, but I pity people who have to. I think maybe a review needs to occur into the whole business of medico-legal consultants. There needs to be a review into the industry. In the meantime, I've also been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, so that just kind of tops it all off.
Come on, Sparky. Good girl. Good girl, aren't you? The thinking on chronic pain has changed enormously from my days in medical school. In fact, if I go back to medical school, I can't even remember chronic pain being included in any of my lectures. It was not considered a condition in its own right. It was really just an add-on for other diseases. These days, I think we need to think about chronic pain as being a condition in its own right. We need to validate it. And as practitioners, we need to upskill so that we're able to deal with the enormous number of people out there who are suffering with chronic pain, who, as of 2012, are not getting the management that they really deserve. Traditionally, I think doctors are being quite confronted by the spectrum of chronic pain because they're so used to fixing problems. And it's often a challenge for doctors to change their way of thinking, to think, well, actually, this is a chronic condition. It's like diabetes. We're going to be in this for the long haul, but it's all about your quality of life and what we can do as a team to improve that. But if a patient goes into a doctor and a doctor just goes, oh, okay, well, I think we'll just work on fixing the problem with a drug, or this is a simple solution, or I can promise to cure you, a patient's often left a bit perplexed by that because often that's not the outcome in their experience. And so they think, well, actually the doctor didn't listen to me. They didn't understand where I was coming from. They just don't get it. Sparky, come here, come on. From the patient's point of view, they often feel as though they're not listened to, that they're not validated, that people doubt that they even have this condition. Hey, I can't see a lump or a bump or anything that's hanging off you that I can say, oh, gee, I see that you're unwell. And so from a patient's point of view, it's often really important that they're validated. There's often an enormous amount of pressure on us as doctors to actually come up with a plan where the problem is eventually fixed and you're going to be able to sign off on that patient and that's the end of the story and the insurer doesn't have to worry about it anymore. Patients will often have conflicting sets of advice from a range of practitioners. Some of those may be doctors, physiotherapists, complementary therapists, and everyone might have a slightly different take on how to move forward. But with chronic pain, I think it's incredibly important to have a conversation between all the stakeholders and to really agree that we're moving in the same direction, because otherwise you get fragmented care. When the system's too fragmented, the patient is not going to have a great outcome because there are going to be too many conflicting points of view perhaps. So that's why a team approach where there's actually a conversation between the stakeholders is really important. And you know what, the central stakeholder is always going to be the person who's living with the chronic pain. There's one person I can think of who was a performer who injured their back. They had some back surgery, but most importantly, they engaged with the process of rehab themselves with Pilates and physical therapy and reconnecting with friends and getting out and about. And that was the turning point for them. They've moved from a period where it was a dark space where they felt that they were never going to reconnect with their life again, to a place where their life is good again. They're able to move and participate in the activities that they enjoy and have a rich and meaningful life. They may still have some pain, but you know what? Life is okay. I think if you've got chronic pain, that having a GP who you trust and who knows you really well is an enormous asset. And fostering that kind of relationship with somebody who really cares about you makes an enormous difference. So as a GP, it's really satisfying to build that relationship with someone and work with them over the longer term to get them to a place where they feel as though they've got a better or improved quality of life.
I was a young teenager, just starting life really. I played sport, used to go to the gym, and life I thought was great. And then all of a sudden one day, I was driving in Newcastle, stopped at a pedestrian crossing, and then next thing I knew, somebody ran up the back of me. And in the next couple of days I started to experience pain. Initially it started in my neck, down into my shoulders, and as time moved on it went basically the whole length of my body. Life was not what it was. I couldn't do anything. I was this active person and all of a sudden I was completely disabled by my pain. I couldn't go and play sport anymore. I couldn't play netball that I loved playing. I wasn't able to work. Although I did continue to work, I worked with a lot of pain. I'd go home at night and I'd lay on the floor and cry because I was in so much pain. I was told that I would never have children, that I'd probably never exercise again, I'd never play sport. So for me, there was no hope. I found myself on the, I suppose what you could call it was the compensation merry-go-round, seeing doctors, trying to get answers, where no doctors gave answers. I was having physiotherapy and that wasn't working. I was referred to psychologists who wanted to medicate me, which I wasn't really very happy with, but they, in the end, put a lot of pressure on me to take the medication to help my pain, and I did, and that, I think, made things go worse. I was dealing with an insurer that didn't seem to want to help. All they wanted to do was get me out of their books, basically, I suppose you could say. And every time I called them to try and get help or try to ask them if they could give me answers, they were terrible. They were actually screaming at me over the phone and told me that if it was money that I wanted, then that we can settle right now. Now that really made me upset and cranky because I didn't want money. I wanted my life back. Eventually, one day, I was referred to yet another rehab provider.
For 2 hours she cried. For 2 hours I stood with her. She rocked against the back of the chair. I knew that she didn't know how to take me because I was not doing the normal rehabby things. We were really just getting to know each other.
I was very wary because I'd been through this so many times and told my story and basically made to feel like a fraud.
Little by little, bits and pieces of Explaining Pain came out. I asked her to go away and think about it all and whether she wanted to engage with this program, because it's my view that even in a compensation system you should have the final right as a person in that system to say, yes, I do want to work with this person, or no, I don't.
It was amazing to find somebody that actually cared, that didn't look at you as a number or somebody who was trying to beat the system or be fraudulent. They actually realised that you were in pain and that what you were saying was true. I started to realise that there was somebody out there that could help, that there was hope, and that maybe there was answers to help me.
After a while, Kimberly went back into the gym with our exercise physiologist. We'd been explaining pain the whole time.
I was really, really scared, and I didn't think that I could do it because I hadn't been able to do anything for so long. The best I could really do was sit, and that even hurt. So to start doing these sort of exercises was very traumatic, but I did it because I knew that I had to get better and something had to work sometime.
Kimberly was now understanding that there is a real message when you're frightened, when you're angry, when you're distressed, when you're frustrated. These are the adrenaline emotions, and these are the ones that fire up pain. So she was very good at being able to identify when she was having those moments, and we were having an ongoing conversation about these sorts of emotions, and she got it.
During the time of trying to do these exercises, I'd cry and not do a lot at first because I didn't believe that I could do them. So I would cry and just look at people and think, I'm never going to be able to do that. That's just not going to be possible.
As I began to be able to do things again, I felt good. Life did have hope, and I felt that maybe one day I could get back to the person that I was and achieve again. I tentatively put my foot onto the treadmill. My whole body was stiff and I was scared, and I slowly started to walk. I only did a minute initially, but it was enough to make me have a little bit of hope that maybe I could do this one day. Over time, weeks and months, I built up my tolerance of time and speed. So the speed slowly started to increase as I found that my tolerances increased.
So one day she had finished her program and she was still improving. She still knew what she had to do, and she was doing a little bit more work, a little bit more this, a little bit more that. Walking along, and I'm just listening, and there's a big puddle. And Kimberly's in mid-flight, you know, yak, yak, yak. And she jumps over this puddle. And I just notice it because this is a girl that is not able to do aerobics yet because she's frightened of jumping, you see, and she's just jumped over this puddle.
I couldn't believe it. It was surreal, really, because I hadn't been able to do anything like that, and I don't think that my mind had caught up with my body. My body was actually now able to do things that I was too scared of doing, and that my mind was saying you can't do, but yet I did it. I was running and I couldn't believe it. I was actually running again, and that moment was overwhelming. It was unbelievable to think that I was back to where I was.
Despite all of the doom and gloom that she'd experienced in the couple of years before she met us and we started working with her, she went on to have 2 babies, despite the medical advice that she wouldn't have babies. And she's living a perfectly normal, wonderful life. That girl, won prizes when she went back to netball. She went back to full-time gym.
I never ever thought it would be possible.
Because you are walking beside them always as equals, you tend to live what they're living. But it's no use living what they're living if it makes you useless. So I guess I tend to always be reframing, but partnering. I'm a great one for reaching out even physically. Somebody's crying and actually reaching out and just being with them. I'm sorry, mate. Good girl, aren't you?
I'm pure!